Alrighty, so we are almost at 3 o'clock here. 30 seconds to go, give or take. Just wanted to make sure we didn't have technical difficulties this week. So this week we are going to be making macrame plant hangers. So I have my plant hanger, but I don't have a way to actually attach this plant right here. It's just not going to work. I also have another pot, but I have no way to attach it to this plant hanger. So I have a dilemma. I could totally cheat once again and go to the store and buy some kind of hanger and hanging basket, but why do that? That's not fun. So we are going to make the macrame plant hanger, and I'm going to show you how to do it. Things you'll need is some type of pot. For me, I have a terrarium, whatever, of plants that are awesome. It's in this beautiful glass container. I also have an empty pot that is in dire need of a beautiful plant, but I want to hang it first, so that's step one. I have 2 different varieties of containers because each container that you may use might be bigger or smaller or larger or wider or in a different weird shape like this one, like mine is. You might even have a round container. So I'm going to show you how to make a plant hanger for both of those. So you have your containers, you have your macrame cord. If you don't have fancy macrame cord, you don't need it. Regular jute rope will work, yarn will work, twine will work. You can even get really fancy and do what my class and I did a couple years ago, and we did t-shirt macrame hangers. And basically you just cut a t-shirt up into t-shirt yarn, and that actually looks really cool, especially if you have really cool designs on your t-shirt. So step one, you are going to need to cut your twine, cut your macrame cord, cut your t-shirt, whatever type of material you're using for your string. You need to cut it first because you cannot do it from this. So you want to cut at least a piece of twine or string approximately 4 to 6 feet long. So 4 to 6 feet long. I'm about 5.5 feet tall, so this is about 4.5 feet tall. So again, between 4 and 6 feet, you want them to be pretty long because we're going to tie a bunch of knots in them. So once you have your one piece measured, take that one piece and then cut 5 more pieces. So you should have 6 pieces in total. Alright, so here we go. Once you have your 6 pieces that are all cut in the same fashion and are all cut to the same length, you are going to put them together. You can do 6 strings or you can do 8. The more strings you have, the more knots you need to tie, but the cooler it looks. So I am just doing 6 just to show you. And the more knots you have, the more secure your pot is, especially if you are putting it in a high wind area. If you're putting it in the house, you don't need that many. So, I digress. You're going to take all your strings and put them together, and you're going to go ahead and you're going to make a loop right here. So then you're going to tie this loop together. So, I'm going to go ahead and tie this together. Just a simple normal knot. Alright, so I have my loop here, and then I'm just going to pull it tight. Alright, so pull it tight from the loop. You can pull it tight from the individual strings. So once you have your loop again, go ahead and pull each individual string just to make sure it's nice and tight and you don't have any wonky looking things. Okay. So there we go, I have my loop. I'm now going to take my loop, I'm going to put it on my hook, and I am going to take 2 strings at a time, and I'm going to tie them in knots. But where should I start tying my knots? So easy rule of thumb, you want your plant to hang somewhere down the halfway point, 3/4. So if you just take your string and you find your halfway point, which is right about here, I'm going to go up just a little bit further than my halfway point. And I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to grab 2 strings, and I'm going to tie them in that same knot that I did my loop knot. So just looping it pulling it through, and there we go. One knot. So now I'm going to go ahead and for each additional string of 2, I'm going to tie a knot as well. So I'm going to go ahead. The only gimmick here is you want to make sure that your knots are approximately the same distance from the top to the bottom. So you want them all to be at the same spot. So once again, tie them in a knot. Alright, so those are all 3 knots tied in the approximately in the same spot. Alright, I can't put a hanger on just these knots, so now I have to work a little bit further. So I'm basically creating a basket. So now I'm going to take 1 string from this knot and 1 string from this knot, and I'm going to go ahead and tie those together. Depending on the size of your plant, depends on how far you want to keep this apart. I kind of like mine closer together because I like the way it looks. It looks like more of a net. If you do it further apart, you might have a harder time keeping your container together. So I'm going to do probably around here. Go ahead and tie that in a knot. Same knot over and over and over again from the top all the way down. So then I'm going to take a string, just one, the one I haven't used, and grab the knot I haven't used and tie those together, again at that same point. So we want, the more even it looks, the better it's going to turn out and the more elegant it's going to look. So there we go. And now I have 2 strands left, and once again I'm going to tie those together. I'm on a roll. That's knot tying. So go ahead, put them together. Alright, so now I have a pretty nice basket. So now let's see what happens. Can I put my pot in here? Well, look at that. I most certainly can, and I can leave it just like this, and then all I have to do is tie a knot in the bottom and it's done. But if I want it a little bit more fancy, or a little bit more netted, or this to sit a little bit lower, I can actually pull this all the way down, and then with this hanging, it's not going anywhere. I can take 1 strand and 1 strand and tie a knot again. Right about there looks pretty good. And then I can take 1 strand and 1 strand and tie it in that same spot in this position. Okay, so now I have 2, 1 there, 1 there, and then I have 1 more I can tie right here. The more knots you have, the prettier it looks. Pretty much is the end story here. So once again, make sure it's in that same spot. And then all I have to do is tie it at the bottom here, and I am pretty secured, okay? So you can do the same thing with your other pot. I'm gonna go ahead and take this out. And this one's very irregular shape, so it makes it a little bit more difficult. But I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna put this one carefully inside of my basket here. And macrame string is not very stretchy, so you might just have to place it where you want these knots to be. But pretty much same idea. I have it held together pretty well here. I can go ahead and just tie a knot at the bottom. I might get rid of these knots and just tie 1 knot at the bottom. I might see if I can stretch this a little bit and get it over. See if I can move this up a bit. There we go. Move this one up a bit. Alrighty. So now I have my knots in kind of different positions, and it's a little bit more secure, and now all I have to do again is just tie this one at the bottom. So right about here, same knot, just tying all the strings together. wait for it. Alrighty. And once you have your knot at the bottom, it is pretty much done. So there we go. Now I have my macrame plant hanger. It's tied at the bottom. It's got pretty knots around it. It's very netted. Looks pretty cool. And you have just learned how to make a macrame plant holder in approximately 5 minutes, give or take. So depending on your pot size, you may have to have more pieces. The more strings you have, the wider it'll get. Also, the more strings you have, the cooler it'll look. So right now I just have 3 strands, but if I did 8, I would have 4. If I did 12, I would have 6, because each 2 gets together. So it's all dependent on how many you want to do and how you want it to look. Your pot size is going to depend on how it looks as well. So if you have an easy round pot, super easy, just get it done. This one was a little bit more complicated, which is why I wanted to show you this one. But the glass jar ones look really cool in this macrame knot because you can see through them. So that's it. Like it in the comments, comment it in the comments, let me know what you want to see, let me know what you want to know more of, and until next week, I will see you at 3 o'clock on Wednesday. Enjoy!